Hi Vivek. Hi Gaurav.
Hi, good evening.
Yes.
How are you?
Fine, thanks.
How
How
are
are
you?
you?
Wonderful, wonderful. So Vivek, the many people who signed up for your webinar, and there's so many people already here. Over 100 people have signed up for your webinar. So we've got our friend from Sweden, Joran. We've
Excellent.
got Judy. You met her at the bird fair. We've got Ambika. We've got Sudha, Shruti. We got Dr. Iqbal Malik. So good to see her again. And
Very good to see you. Like,
yes, and we have to go see her soon. And then Kusum is here from Sri Lanka. Avi is here. Brian Stretch is here. You remember Brian Stretch, our friend
yes,
from
of course.
Worcester,
Hi, Brian.
and Ekta. So many friends of ours are already here, and they are here to listen to you. So I'm not going to spend too much time introducing myself or you also actually. I'll just give a brief introduction. Friends who are here for the first time, let me introduce my friend Vivek Menon to you. Vivek is an Indian wildlife conservationist, environmental commentator, author, and photographer with a passion for elephants and birds. The founder of 5 environmental and nature conservation organizations. Menon is founder and executive director of the Wildlife Trust of India. He's the author or editor of 10 wildlife books and hundreds of articles on natural history. So we'll do justice. It's not just this much; it's a lot more. But I'll let Vivek speak about his work to you. So over to you, Vivek. Go right ahead. And in the meantime, I'll also paste some links for people to see, or know more about you. Over to you, Vivek.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Mohit. Thank you, Mohit. Thank you, Asian Adventures, for giving me the slot on your webinar. And no, I'm not going to record myself, and nor even much of my work in the sense I've been asked to present a specific thing, which is my new book, or rather, an old book but in a new form. So I'll rather talk about Indian mammals quickly, but also point on. If I can get my screen share. Yeah, there you are. And I will ask all of you whether you are able to see my presentation.
Yes, Vivek, but your voice is
Can I get
breaking. But everybody can see the slide. But I think you just need to check the sound once.
okay? I will
This is much
try.
better. Much better.
Yeah, okay. Right. So it should be all right. But if you want, I can try another Wi-Fi. But if not, if people are losing me, please do interrupt me and let me know if I need to switch. But I'd prefer this one. Okay, friends, as I said, I wrote a field guide to Indian mammals about 14 odd years ago in a totally different form. And I wrote it at a time when there was no field guide to animals of India, other than something that was written in the 1950s, a much loved book called Indian Animals by Prater. And after that, nobody in India had written a book on this. And for years and years, I tried to convince many of my senior mammalogists of this country to attempt this. And as they did not, I plunged into it with the caveat to my then publisher that I would probably need 2 more versions of the book to make it perfect. I knew my large mammals but I was then very shaky on my small mammals. But I thought I'll take the plunge and do it. And that book was a book published by Penguin and Dolling Kindersley at that time, which was acquired by Penguin. And it very quickly became a much loved book on the Indian circuit. And then some years later, I published Indian Mammals with Hachette. And that now, after another 6-7 years, has been redone into a fully updated new version. So it is the third guide to mammals that I've written. And I have fulfilled my promise to the publishers that I will take my 3 versions to make a perfect book. So what is on offer now is a fairly comprehensive book, which of course I'll just let you see a couple of images of, and then go into explaining what goes into this book. Each of my 3 editions, interestingly, if all of you are interested in covers, has a cat and has a leopard. So my first edition of the book, which was published by Dolling Kindersley, had a leopard, a common leopard of India on the cover. My second, which was the first of the Hachette series, had a clouded leopard. And for this updated version, I have used the snow leopard. So 3 big cats for the cover as of now. So this book now has more than 440 species of land and aquatic animals with introductory pages on each order. When I first wrote it, it had 100. And 17. But now it is 4 that could be. A few things which could be as well have been put in. So 440 species is the latest count. It has illustrations. It has illustrations and field notes, and it's over 1,000 photographs, which I've tried to choose looking at images that will help you identify that species if you see it in the field. So where every chapter starts, like for example, these are the even-toed ungulates where the deer and the goat and the cattle and the antelope, etc. lie. And in this family, you will see first some small statistics of that family, which is easy for you to see. Sorry, this is moving a little by itself. And then there's a caption at the end of every photograph in the book, and a diagram which shows where that particular species or taxon can be found. Now, this is at the beginning of the book. So when you see even-toed ungulates, you'll know that all even-toed ungulates are really on the ground. Don't look for them up in the tree. So in other words, even an absolute beginner can actually use the book, as well as experts who then want to do things, for example, like finding distribution maps. And in distribution maps, knowing, if you look at the right one, for example, where each subspecies lies. So you can become, you can be a beginner using it, or you can be an expert using it. Now in cetaceans, which is the second map that you can see, we have also shown the actual spots where cetacean has ever waters around, but it shows you where it has physically stranded and come onto the Indian coast, thereby showing you the occurrence of distribution. Now, each species page has a clear photograph with identification features. So those little pointers that come out sometimes says SP, means that feature is a ID for that species. Sometimes it'll tell you SSP, which means it's an identification of a subspecies between 2 subspecies, or it may tell you a G, which is a genus, etc., or a F, which is a family. Okay, and then in the text, which I've tried to arrange absolutely evenly across all the 440 species, you will find both a description and behavior, which is very, very important. People often think of a field guide only to identify, but no, you want to know the behavior of the animal, the distribution, and the habitat. Okay, and a few information tabs at the top telling you about the family and the Latin name, etc., and even size and weight. And by the way, the size and weight are things that have really changed over my 2 editions or 3 editions. The reason I'm saying that is a lot of the first book that I wrote, the sizes, there were no modern studies. So people were quoting earlier books, and the earlier books were quoting even earlier books, but there was no modern study. And this is something I just want to tell all of you readers. In my manuscript, everything I've written in the book, even from the very first edition, is in 3 colors. So where I write it, it's in a 3 colors. Where I myself know the fact, yes?
Your sound is breaking, your sound is cracking, so you need to either change your Wi-Fi or just see if you can do it again. Otherwise, no problem, you can carry on.
Okay, I can attempt.
This is okay now. You're sounding okay. Go on.
Mohit, can you hear me now?
Yes, much better.
Is it better? Okay, I've changed my Wi-Fi. All right, let's hope this is better. I'm sorry if there was a connection issue. Okay, so what's new in this edition? All right. 35 new species have been added, which is not there in the previous edition. Some of the highlights, for example, is the desert hamster, which has been added from Ladakh, almost as the book was going to print. Somebody actually located an animal and photographed it, a Eurasian species, but we didn't know that it existed in India. So that's been added. Very interestingly, friends, 2 monkeys have been added. The white-cheeked macaque, which is known from China, now found in India as well, in Arunachal Pradesh, for the first time recorded and photographed. And genetically, the Ceylon macaque has been split from the Arunachal macaque. So we knew there was an Arunachal macaque, which in itself was a new primate that was discovered a few years ago. And that has now been split into 2 based on a pass and on 2 sides of the pass. There have been a number of bats that have come in. For example, the Japanese horseshoe bat is now recorded from within India. 17 species have been removed because of taxonomic reasons. For example, the parti-colored bat, which we thought existed in India, no longer exists in India. So there are a couple of bats like that. And one of the large mammals where there's been a controversy and genetics going up and down is the hoolock gibbon. So earlier it was thought to be 1 gibbon, the western hoolock gibbon. Then they split it into 2, the western and the eastern hoolock gibbon. And now it has been shown that all the gibbons that exist in India are still the western hoolock gibbon, although they have small morphological differences, but genetically it does not come out. So the eastern hoolock gibbon is a Southeast Asian species, and what we have in India is the western hoolock gibbon. So we have taken the eastern hoolock gibbon out. There's revised classification. In my earlier books, you will see the chinkara as the Indian gazelle, 1 species. But now again, taxonomically, because of genetics, it's been split into 3 different mammals. The Deccan chinkara of southern India, the desert chinkara of Rajasthan and western India, and now a new species for me to see. I have not seen the salt range gazelle of Pakistan and adjoining parts of Punjab and Haryana. There's increased description in a number of species. So we've added a few more pages. So some things that in the earlier edition, for example, the Chinese rufous horseshoe bat, which existed only in a table and had only a few lines describing it, now has an entire half page to it. So when you get the new book, you will really get more description of certain species. And updated photographs. So each of the old photographs, if you've got better photographs or newer photographs, we've updated with newer photographs. Not all of them, many of them are the same, but many have been updated as well. As I showed you in an earlier map, earlier slide, there's detailed map now covering subspecies. Wherever we know subspecific distribution, even if it's broad, we have tried to give you an indication of what subspecies you are likely to find. Let me be candid to say that these distribution lines are not very precise where they join each other. Okay, because we do not have as much knowledge, especially about the smaller species, on exact districts or exact locations. So they're broad indications based on topography. And people liked my earlier attempt to put some field notes, which are personalized notes that I had put on my experience with mammals, and people like that. So I've added several more pages. For example, in monkeys, I've added one more. So we've added pages of field notes to give you some more interesting facts. Right. So that's as far as the book, the specs of the book, as we say, is concerned. But I do want to, take you through a few more slides in trying to tell you something about some of the animals that are featured in this, which will be maybe of interest to you in terms of stories. So the hula gibbon, I just gave you a lowdown on how it was lumped and then split and became two and then became one again. But it's the only ape in India. Okay, it's the only ape in India other than us human beings. You can see it still fairly easily in many parts of the northeast of India, and even in places where you can't see it that much, you can really hear it. The first thing in the morning, you'll hear the male and the female duet. There's songs of the gibbon are very, very noticeable, and it's something that if you have not heard, go to Northeast India, and in many parts of Assam, some parts of Arunachal and Meghalaya, you can very, very easily see or hear this beautiful animal. This animal that you can see at the moment is a young female, although it's males which are black with a white brow, and females, when they become an adult, become golden, become a blonde. But this blonde is still a young animal and therefore is a female. We know it because this is one of the animals we actually released as part of the Wildlife Trust of India's rehab programs. And therefore we know that this one is actually a female. But I told you the female gibbon gets to be blonde, but the most blonde monkey we have is the golden langur, Presbytis G, probably the most endangered of our monkeys. Maybe there are one or two others which will contest with it. Found only in a small area of Assam, bordering Bhutan. So you can see it on both sides of the Manas River and into Bhutan as well. And it's a completely golden animal. Many people ask me how to differentiate it from the capped langur, which I've said in the book, but just for those of you listening, a capped langur, always the cap, that is the top of the head, and the cheeks will be of two different colors. Whatever the subspecies, and the 3 or 4 subspecies of capped langur, which look a little different from each other, including one which is very golden, almost like golden langur, maybe even more golden in color than the golden langur, but the cap will be a different color and the cheeks will be golden. Here in the golden langur, the cap and the cheeks are always of the same color. The lion, two interesting facts. One, of course, the interesting fact that this lion is actually increasing in number. It's one of our success stories. It has not only increased in number over the 30 years that I worked in wildlife, but it's also occupied new areas. So lots of areas of Gujarat surrounding the Gir National Park now has a lion. And in fact, it's even in some outskirts of many villages. Purely in terms of range extension and numbers, it is one of our conservation success stories. In terms of genetics, it is different from the African lion, and it differs not only in being a little more bald, although lion chauvinists will often say that, no, our lion also has enough mane, but my own experience with Asian lions and African lions is that the Asian lion is a little balder and has a distinct belly fold on the belly, which you can't see here. But the African lion has a smoother belly, and ours has a distinct fold, which you can see in most lions. The wolf, at the moment, I put them as subspecies altogether, but it may be split because there are several people who are now postulating that the Tibetan wolf, definitely, Canis lupus chanco, is a different species from the Indian wolf, Canis lupus palipus, and perhaps in between the two, in the Himalayas, in the lower Himalayas, that there could be yet another wolf, the Himalayan wolf. At the moment, they're considered subspecies. But just to tell you an interesting story about this particular photograph, which is of mine, that I took in the Changtang in Ladakh. As our vehicle approached a bifurcation in the road, one coming from the top of the mountain and one coming from the bottom of the mountain, the wolf came from the bottom of the mountain. From the top of the mountain, a very large wild sheep came down and stood right in the middle of the road, an argali, a large sheep. And this wolf, probably because it couldn't go forward because of the sheep, and it couldn't turn because of us, our vehicle, and it had the pride of a wolf. It lunged at the sheep, at the argali, and caught hold of it by the neck. The argali merely waited a couple of seconds and then just tossed his head. He did not move an inch of his limbs. He just tossed his head, and this wolf went flying through the air and fell down on the other side of the ravine. And what you're seeing is a photograph of a very sheepish wolf, actually, getting up, one of our largest canids, but still, imagine the strength of the neck muscles of this wonderful large sheep that we have, of which a subspecies is the Marco Polo sheep of Central Asia. And our argali can headbutt each other with huge velocities, and it's a fantastic animal to see, the argali and the wolf as well. Just a story to interest you about the thing. Another canid, which is of great interest, is the dhole. Because of its dentition, it's different from all other wild dogs. So it's it's a more primeval dog of the dog family. It is not closely related to wolves or jackals or foxes or the wild dog of Africa. It's completely different, and also very different in other ways, such as the fact that they have a low whistle. In fact, Dr. A.J.T. Johnson was one of the first Indians who studied the dhole, as it's called in Indian languages. Actually used to whistle using a rifle cartridge, an empty cartridge, to produce the sound that the dhole make. The dhole are also very, very efficient carnivores, hunt in a pack and can completely can strip a prey, even a large deer, down to the bones, all meat eaten in less than an hour sometimes. Yeah, and people often call this, very horrific or macabre way of hunting, but I find them to be extremely efficient carnivores, evolved to take a prey on the trot. If any of you have not been to Kaziranga, if all of you are wildlife lovers in India, you would have been. But if any of you have not, please do go. It's a place where you can see still 20, 30, or sometimes even more one-horned rhino in one glance. If you are in one of the good ranges, you can see in the grassland at one glance, standing on top of a watchtower, at least 20 or 30 rhino. The greater one-horned rhino is a great conservation success story, again, like the lion. We had all three rhinos in India, if you didn't know. Up to 1936, we had the Sumatran rhino, and the Javan rhino went a little earlier. But both were right at the edge of Northeast India. The one-horned rhino actually existed all the way into Pakistan, historically. But now it's found only in northern West Bengal and Assam, and some translocated ones in Dudhwa in Uttar Pradesh. But a great place to see it is Kaziranga. At the same time, you can see many other endangered ungulates, such as the water buffalo, the Asiatic water buffalo, Bubulus arni. Here you see a male buffalo with the rhino in one picture. If there is one antelope that I find very, very beautiful and very intricately, entwined with Indian culture and legacy, it's a black buck. And both subspecies, the Rajasthan one or the Deccan one, it's known as Krishnamrg in Sanskrit, is a beautiful animal with lovely coiled, straight spires of horns in the male, and that ebony and white combination with such beautiful eyes, which are always marked with white, so you can easily appreciate the close-up beauty of even the female, which, as you can see, is brown. An endangered species that you can see on the roadsides, unfortunately, sometimes, I think unfortunately, but perhaps it's fortunate in the sense that perhaps enough of them and some of them have got accustomed to human beings, is the Nilgiri tar, which on roads in both near Munnar in Kerala as well as places like Valparai in Tamil Nadu, you will see them standing on the road. But it's actually a very endangered wild goat. There are two tars in India, the Himalayan tar and the Nilgiri tar. And the Nilgiri tar, as I said, is probably one of the easiest seen endangered wild goat in the world. This used to be called the Himalayan squirrel or the red flying squirrel. But now it's called the red and white flying squirrel. So this is one of our large flying squirrels that has actually changed its name. And the name red flying squirrel has gone now to another creature, which I last saw in Borneo, but is found in parts of Southeast Asia. This animal, the red and white flying squirrel, again to tell you a story, again because of the photo that I've taken, long ago when I was trekking with my friend who's right here, Mohit Aggarwal, in our younger days in the Himalayas, and I lay down after the trek or in the middle of the trek when I was tired under a tree and I had a little snooze. And I was woken up by this flock of jays, which was chattering above my head. And it woke me up. So I looked up to see what birds they were. But just above my head, there was a hole, a tree hole. And out of that hole was woken up the red and white flying squirrel. That was also sleeping like me, was also woken up by the jay and put its head out to look at what is happening in the world around it. And I took the photograph literally lying down on my back and holding my camera above my head and took this shot. I'm glad I did it because, as I said, now it's a different species from what we even thought it was. There are a number of flying squirrels, only one across most of peninsular India, but across the Himalayas, we have at least 5 or 6 large flying squirrels. In the peninsula, there are 2, but one is a smaller flying squirrel and one is a larger flying squirrel. That's it. I'm not going to bore you more with a number of stories. What I will do is play this little clip which was sent to me by video, by WhatsApp by a friend of mine, ostensibly of a rhino in India, but could be in Nepal as well. That is a reality of wildlife in India. So that's the book. Come and come to India if you're not from India. If you're an Indian, go to all the wildlife places that you can see. I'm going to exit the slideshow and then talk a little bit more, maybe 2 minutes more, and then we can open up for questions as well. Let me just exit this show. Right. Yeah. Okay. So that's in terms of the PowerPoint that I'm showing you. So this is the book. Read the book and travel till my new book comes out, which will come out in the next 6 months, hopefully, or 8 months, which is a companion volume, which will tell you where to go and what to see. So that's the book which was originally thought of as the companion guide to national parks of India. But it's not going to be national parks alone. It's going to be nature reserves of India, which includes parks and sanctuaries, but also areas which are not protected, but which are very good to see wildlife. So that will then give you an idea of where to go to see what. But till then, here's the ID guide that we have for you, and I would encourage you to go out and buy a copy. You can get it in bookstores in India. It's not freely available outside India, unfortunately. I'm trying to get Amazon to stock it outside. But those of you who wish to order from the Wildlife Trust of India, the money actually goes to conservation, the money that you use to buy. So if you are in India, got an Indian address, and you want to buy it from the Wildlife Trust of India's website, just go on to it, and buy it. Of course, apart from the money going to conservation, which is a real good part, but the additional thing that you get is that you get a signed copy, because if you buy it from my trust, then I'd be happy to sign a copy for all of you as well. This is a trust, the Wildlife Trust of India. I'm just going to end with those couple of lines. As Mohit said, that I should talk about my work, and I should not lose an opportunity, a good opportunity to tell you. The Wildlife Trust of India also turns 25 in November. Okay, 25 years ago, I formed the trust along with three other people, conservationists, and this trust is working very, very hard in more than 40 projects spread across 22 field locations across India. So we work from Kashmir to Kerala or Lakshadweep, from Gujarat to Arunachal. And do come to our website at www.wti.org.in and log on to the website. Mohit can help you post things onto that as well. That's all for the presentation, and I'll be quite happy to take
There is a question, Vivek, there's a question by Göran Pettersson from Sweden. He wants to know, is it Namdafa flying squirrel that you see in Deban, in Namdafa? So when you go to Deban from Miao, is it?
Yeah. So possibly not. So when I went there too, they showed me what they said was a Namdafa flying squirrel. So in most probably what you are seeing is not that. It is a red and white flying squirrel of a different subspecies. So it's very pale underneath as compared to the one that you just saw. And or it could be another flying squirrel. There are a couple of them found there, so depending on what they show you. But the Namdafa flying squirrel has been really described properly from only that specimen that is in Zoological Survey of India. And recently, there has been a survey, not conducted by us, conducted by field groups in Northeast India to try and actually trace a certified Namdafa flying squirrel. And unfortunately, so far, they have failed. So it possibly is found there, but it's not the one that's normally near the rest house that comes to, and people show it to you as a Namdafa flying squirrel.
Okay. So Dipankar Mahabali, I must tell you that there are no discounts in conservation books. Yeah, so if you're looking for conservation discounts here, you should actually opt for donating more money than what the book would cost. So then Charvi is here. What to do after post-graduation in wildlife biology and conservation? She wants advice from you.
Yeah. Okay. But before I give her some advice, I want to tell the earlier person that we did try to make it as cost-effective as possible. For so many color photos, the publisher would have normally priced it at a much higher price. And we tried to bring it down as much as we could. I know it's still expensive for many people in India, but looking at paper prices and stuff, we have tried to keep it as low as possible because we want to reach as many people as we can.
I have 5 books of yours, 5 signed copies, which I want to give away to institutions, to schools, to people who can, where multiple people can make use of your book. So if you're running any institution, you can reach out to me, and I'm happy to send out Vivek's copy to you.
That's good. Now the question that Charvi, is it?
Yeah.
Asked what you can do. So see, Charvi, when I started in conservation 30 odd years ago, there were very few opportunities, and I had to create my own opportunity in some ways. Although I learned with the Bombay Natural Society, which is a very, very old and venerable society, but the number of people who could pay for a job were very few. My first job was at WWF of India, which is also there, but now there are 2 or 3 things. I mean, one is the civil society sector itself has become much more vibrant. So the number of organizations like mine, plenty of others, who are offering jobs in wildlife conservation. We actually even run a master's with the Bharatiya Vidyapeeth in Pune on conservation action now. So you can actually get a master's in conservation action, not in biology alone. and then come and join one of these organizations. Also, the government of India has started taking a number of people. And of course, there's academics. Academics is another thing that once you're skilled in this, you can do. It is still a small and specialized field. So I won't suggest that people who do not have the passion for nature or wildlife, if you don't have the passion and you don't have the ability to stay in it for a long period of time, don't take it up. So it's not an area which has lots of jobs and it's easy and you can go and get, it's an area where you can get it. If this is what you really want to do, today there are opportunities.
Okay. Sandeep Kannan is asking, which is the latest mammal recorded in India?
Well, I just showed you the desert hamster possibly was recorded as the book was going to print. So, I had already given in one version of my text, so I had to introduce that in. So, Ladakh hamster possibly, and the split of the Sela macaque and the Arunachal macaque is also very, very recent.
Yeah. And Arun is asking, has there been any progress with wildlife corridors, especially for tigers in India?
Yeah, so definitely. You see, I'm despite all the problems that we face, I'm an optimist. So again, the idea of corridors, when we were espousing it 20 years ago, nobody was even looking at it. Now, a number of people are looking at it. Elephant corridors, people are discovering new. I could hear some states recently saying, "Oh, we are very happy that we got a corridor," and I had to tell them that you should not be happy. Actually, if there are corridors, it's bad because that means habitat is fragmenting. If you have more corridors in India, it is bad actually. Right? But what corridors you have to preserve. So corridors are not things you make. Animals use them to go from one habitat to the other. Tiger corridors also, at least some underpasses, overpasses, etc. have been made. Recently, we saw that one tiger, poor thing, had got hit by a car in the only stretch of that place where the underpass was not there. So underpass, overpass are being now made. Much more to be done. But at least some parts of the government are receptive. People are much more aware, and so it definitely is better than what it was earlier.
It is, Gaurav is asking, can you describe elephant protection taken in our country since independence and where we stand?
Okay, very simple, 2-3 line answer I can give you. One is that when I started in conservation 36 years ago, there were supposed to be 25,000 elephants in India. Okay, and now there are 30,000 elephants in India, plus or minus 29, 30,000. So has there been a huge increase? No. Has there been a decrease? No. It's more or less steady. Yeah, 5,000 over 30 years, I will not call it an increase either. Yeah, it's a very slow increase, and it may be because elephants are so long-lived that suddenly some of this will crash as well. So we should not be happy that it has increased slightly, but it has not decreased tremendously either. So what's our problem? Our problem is not number. Our problem in elephant conservation is space. So unlike tigers and rhinos and other things where we are facing a game of extinction, elephants, if there's one place in the world where it will go last, it will be India. The problem is attrition. We are killing 100 elephants maybe, or less actually nowadays, less than 100. But elephants are killing 400 Indians a year. So in one way, are the elephants winning? No, they're not, because people are getting, unhappy with the elephants. So where does elephant conservation stand? We still have enough numbers. You still have several good populations. Just the southern Indian population of Nilgiri plateaus, more than 10,000 elephants, Eastern Ghats and Western Ghats, largely Western Ghats, little Eastern Ghats, 10,000 elephants, more than any other country in Asia. No other country has 10,000 elephants. Okay, so some parts of India things are looking up actually. Some parts of India it's really going down. So it's a mixed bag. Sorry, I have lost you, Mohit. Sorry,
Mohit, your voice is inaudible.
I cannot hear you. No, can't hear you. Can people hear me?
Yeah, you're audible, at least to me.
Okay, I'm audible now. Mohit, you're not. Okay, let me try and read some questions if there is any. Yes, Harish, invasive plants like lantana are causing havoc. That's true. Uh, Not just lantana. In fact, lantana is least of my worries now. There are other things like senna, for example, which is taking over large parts of Mudbale, Bandipur that you're talking about, and many other mimosa in Kaziranga. And so, yes, it is a major problem. And yes, of course, it affects animals. So we have to really look at it. It's not a sexy fight like fighting poaching or something like that. But fighting invasive species is very, very important. Otherwise, it takes over the habitat, especially grasslands or senna or things like that can take over woodlands as well, and completely destroys the habitat for our endangered species. Somebody's asking whether there are any good books on snakes of India. I think there are. I think Ram Whitaker had done a book, and there's another one by Ashok Captain. I'm not a snake person, but yeah, there are. There are plenty of, not plenty, but there are 2 or 3 good books on snakes of India. Can anybody? Do you have an education program for schools to engage them with conservation? Not really. The thing is, I mean, we do have campaigns. At the moment, we have a large one on elephant corridors. So in those campaigns, schools and colleges can join wherever WTI has a campaign. In fact, we will reach out to schools and colleges for people to join. But we don't have an education program. That's very different from a free-flowing public campaign which we run. Certain NGOs do education. We don't really do it. We don't have the core competence to get into education. Okay, Muzaffar Kichlu says species status of grey langurs in India. Whether, yeah, being a Kichlu, you're obviously worried about the Kashmir langur. Yeah, so that one is still not genetically proven, Muzaffar. But the grey langurs, which we thought were one species, has been split into many, many species now. And depending on who you ask and what genetics you believe in, it can be 7 or 9 species. But the one that you're particularly interested in at the moment, the Kashmir grey langur, at the moment we're not very sure whether it's part of the Chamba langur complex, which we now think is a different langur genetically. But really good genetics are still to be done. So I will caution people on that, and or whether it's a part of the Himalayan langur complex of Schistaceous, which comes into Kashmir. So it could possibly be the latter as well. But we need good genetics really to find out. Just now to say that it's a longer fur and it's denser and all that is iffy. So we have to wait for good genetics. Any other, Mohit, that you can see?
There's one question. Are there areas in Ladakh or Northwest for wild yaks for foreigners?
No, Goran, unfortunately. Answer is no. Wild yak in India, and the Wildlife Trust of India actually did surveys on the wild yak and Tibetan antelope. And the wild yak comes into India only in the Changchenmo of the Changtang, which is in Ladakh. It does not come into India in the northeast, to the best of our knowledge. And in Changchenmo, unfortunately, because of the border with China, or Tibetan Autonomous Region of China, India does not allow foreigners there. There are military installations and all. So I have been lucky enough to see one there. But at the moment, I don't think foreigners can go there.
Brian is asking a question. How are the numbers of hangul doing in Kashmir?
Not very well is the truthful answer. I'm not going to go into the number game because I mean, different people will tell you different things in terms of numbers. But overall, all our work in Kashmir, which we have done for many, many years, Markhor has been our main project, but Hangul has always been a project that we have done outside Dachigam. So 2 things are there. One is the Hangul come down into Dachigam National Park in Kashmir only for a few months of the year. And yet, most of the work that people are doing or seeing Hangul or photographing Hangul or or trying to do research on Hangul is in Dachigam. But for most of its life, it's outside Dachigam, largely unprotected areas, some protected areas like Overa, Aru, etc., where the Hangul go, and very little good science has been done in those areas. So we've been trying to do some of it, and our initial findings are that Hangul numbers are not very promising, and the ability for the Hangul to migrate into these areas are getting lesser and lesser because of livestock grazing in many of these areas.
So,
Yeah, it's the same with Tibetan antelope, Goran. Same.
Sure.
Tibetan antelope and wild yak, exactly the same space. Exactly the same space.
So, friends, I think we're done with the questions, and there are people, the youngsters who want to either volunteer or they want to know the opportunities in conservation. There's somebody who's done MSc in microbiology and wants to work in conservation. I think you should just write to Wildlife Trust of India. They have many projects, openings, and opportunities for youngsters to participate and to take part and to make their career in conservation. So Wildlife Trust of India is the key organization that will help you, prepare your career and go ahead with conservation.
Go onto our website and you should see volunteering opportunities and interning opportunities, and or if you don't see, write into me. I mean, now that you have been on my talk, no problem. Just write into me, Vivek@wti.org.in. Maybe Mohit can put my email up. I have no issue. I will guide you to the best of my ability.
So that's Vivek's, okay. And that's the website that Gaurav has put. And friends, if you ever need to meet Vivek, just reach out to him. And he's a storehouse of knowledge, always ready, especially with younger people. May not have so much patience with bearded people like us, but I'll tell you, if you're out of school or college or you're looking for career counseling, just reach out to him in conservation. He's a man to go to. Always, he'll give you the ups and downs of everything. He'll give you the reality, real picture of making the right choices. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. I had actually talked lesser, hoping that there'll be more questions and more interaction, because it was a book thing. I didn't want to talk loud and long about my book. I just wanted to tell you what it is, and then actually engage you in conversation.
So there's one link that I posted here, which I'll post again now. And this is where you can find his book. You can order it online, and he'll send you a signed copy. And if you're running an institute, and if you want to a school or you work with a set of people, you want a book, write to me. I'll send you one unconditionally. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Vivek. That was a wonderful webinar, and I just hope this is like a Bible, and it'll stay there forever with us. I probably have stored more books thinking that they'll go out of print. I wouldn't know where to get them. Now I've got lots and lots of them lying with me. So friends, reach out to me for more if you want. Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you all for coming.